Last year, in 2024, the Northern California area was treated to the creative vision of a local independent filmmaker. Luke Van Mol and his mighty Men of Valor Productions used the Northern California landscape to film a cinematic narrative whose scope tells a story with much wider beginning parameters. It's called Miracle Mile, a faith-based romantic comedy that doesn't sacrifice the storyline for the comedic asides and yet delivers that nonetheless. Well, he didn't do this alone, of course, and his small team of creatives successfully assembled the cinematography, sound, personalities, and editing to make it one of the few locally made films that has kept its qualitative head above the waterline. It seems that the horror genre dominates the majority of local offerings in time past, and those have resulted in wild qualitative swings for sure. Larger budget shoots have been done here in the area, of course, including Chris Farley's last film, and Kevin Spacey was involved in a long set of film sequences up in Dunsmuir, just north of Redding, California, the place that Luke, his cast and crew, and yours truly all call home. Well, I sat down with him at the Redding Library to discuss the process recently, including the backstories and things that can arise unexpectedly when trying to make a film in the first place. Miracle Mile has just achieved Amazon distribution to include DVD sales, and this news is breaking even as I record this right now, and this was not an established fact at interview time, as you will see. Thank you to Luke Van Mol and his mighty Men of Valor Productions for being on the podcast on this special episode of Box Number 7.
All right, so I've already set the precursor on my show. I'd like to welcome Luke Van Mol of Mighty Men of Valor Productions. I believe that's the name of it, right?
Yeah, Mighty Men of Valor Studios.
Yeah. And how long have you had that name?
Well, we started that company in 2019, and specifically my good friend Tyler Pokup started the company and asked me to be his business partner in the process. And we had made short films when I was a teenager, and he saw my work ethic and was impressed, and so I was the first person he asked to be a part of it.
And I met him. I think I met him at one of the premiere dates, and he knows some people he's got a podcast of his own, doesn't he?
Yeah. Also, his friend has a podcast. Dustin Salsey is the guy's name of the podcast. It's the Formless Podcast.
Yeah, I've listened to it a little bit. They like to talk about, I think they're martial arts guys.
They are.
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah. Well, very cool. We obviously are here to talk about you've actually got kind of a backlog of work that you've done, short films and things. But we're here to talk about like the most recent project of yours, which is called Miracle Mile, which I have seen. I do have that reference point. So why don't you, just for the sake of, because there are people that are listening to this show all across the country right now, explain the premise, the plot, and essentially what it's about, because a lot of them will not have seen it yet.
Sure. The film is a faith-based road trip comedy, and the premise is, as our synopsis goes, with the help of a recovering combat veteran, he takes an overly optimistic young man along with his cranky grandpa in a rickety van on a road trip with many setbacks.
I would say many, many setbacks and stuff. And you do say it's a faith-based, very family-friendly film?
Very. Yep. We worked very hard for that.
I appreciate that. I think that's one of the things that Pixar is kind of known for. You know, they've typically kept they color inside the lines, so to speak. And so so you are getting ready. So this you managed to get this into some theatrical setups here. How did that work out?
Right. So we had it in 8 total theaters, And Tyler was more in charge of that distribution part of it. So while I was working on post-production, he was cold calling theater chains, and seeing who would say yes on a little to no budget. And so we got yeses from a few different ones. The biggest chain was Coming Attractions. They had a few theaters on the coast, and he also had one in his hometown in Kansas, or his family's hometown in Kansas.
You did get
all
it
the way
far back.
that far, yeah.
Oh, wow.
And of course, in Red Bluff, oh my goodness, Prime Cinemas in Red Bluff was such a blessing. They were all pretty much yes to everything we asked about. Could we have our premiere there? Oh, yep, we can do that. Can it be in your largest theater? Yep, we can do that. So very helpful. And then we were able to get one night in Cinemark.
Oh, wow.
Yep, a few months afterwards.
Is that considered like a big gun?
It is.
In terms of that?
Yeah. It's quite pricey to get just a one-night showing there, though, so we weren't going to get any larger screenings, although we tried very hard to. Oh. But we knew that so many people kept asking, when is it going to be in Reading? It's like, what? This is a film you shot almost entirely in Reading. Why is it not showing in Reading? So we're like, well, just out of principle, we need to have at least one night there.
Yeah. So that was were all of these theaters pay to play, so to speak?
It depends on the situation. With a lot of them, it was a profit split, and then in the case of Cinemark, there's an upfront fee involved.
They're into the bottom line. So, as you said, this was actually filmed almost entirely in Reading, or especially Northern California. Putting Reading aside, what are some of the other regions that you managed to wind up in doing this?
Wind up in doing this, like where the story takes place, or where we filmed?
Where you filmed.
We filmed also in Anderson. So it's mostly the Shasta County area, like Reading, Anderson, and then there's a few scenes on the coast as well, where we went to Trinidad. And that's as far as our filming went. And the rest of the film, we just have to pretend that other places around our local area were Idaho through Oregon.
I was able to kind of tell that, but that's just because I'm a regional cat. I've been here since I was 6, but it was really well done. Anybody not inculcated to the local area won't see that, but it is on the Trivial Pursuit level. It's pretty interesting. I'm trying to remember, there was that scene with the broken down car scene. Were you in Trinidad for that part?
We were.
You were. Okay, that's what I thought. All right, and let's see. So when you sit down to do something like this, I made a documentary, but I made an 11-minute film. I had never done anything like that before, and I found out that there's a lot going on, especially when I was just doing it all myself. It was a fly fishing film. Where do you start when you decide do you start? Obviously, you have a script, but what's the first thing you do to make something like this?
Well, that is a very complicated and frustrating process. So yes, it does start with a script. We spent 6 months writing the first draft of it. Of course, there would be further revisions down the road with Corey DeSilva and Denise Churchill helping us with those rewrites.
I see they're writers on this, some of the principal writers, Corey, Tyler, Denise. Yeah.
Yep. And then it's a very long and tedious process of raising money and reaching out to all kinds of people that you think might have money, and asking all kinds of people, and then sending all kinds of emails and getting led down dead ends a lot. Person tells you go to a person, goes to a person, and then it's the same person you've already contacted, or somebody that just doesn't answer your email or says no. And then every once in a while there's a yes. With this, we thought we would get a lot more than we did. We tried for quite some time to raise $600K. There was a time we were working with one of Tyler's connections out of L.A., which in the end didn't end up working out. But quite a bit of time was spent on that, and in the process we even made a proof of concept short film, which is in part of the final film. Like, from minutes 6 to 16 of the movie, that was our proof of concept. That we spent 10 months making to try to raise more money with some distribution outlets that were like, we want to see some kind of something to show for it first.
So that proof of concept, did you have to refilm that section, or is that section actually integrally woven into the film?
That section is actually in the film. We even attempted a reshoot on one or two scenes where there were some rewrites done, but the reshoot was just terrible. I felt so bad and was like, no, this is... No, there's a whole story behind that. And then, of course, a few little tweaks here and there. You'll be able to see in the DVD, actually. I do include the short film version of it without any of the small tweaks or anything. So when the DVD comes out, I should also mention I have spent the last 9 months putting together a full-length behind-the-scenes documentary on that DVD called Making Miracle Mile, where every story we're talking about right here you can see in even more detail with the behind-the-scenes footage, interviews from all of us, and it's intended both to be able to educate people on how exactly you might be able to make an independent film like this, and also to preserve that story for generations to come.
Well, I really liked it. I'm a person that notices things. I'm not a professional really at anything, but I'm a guy that's been in radio. I've been in music recording. I did edit my own film on Final Cut Pro before CapCut came along, and I became part of the TikTok generation. Now I can edit a little short promo like any millennial. I'm an old guy. Give me my cane. Let me go to the bathroom 15 times, but I will match your wits. But I will tell you what I learned was how much video is one thing, but matching and getting good sound, especially people that have to do sound. And I'm not sure who the ultimate heavy was on putting the sound in there, but the sound editing, I noticed it when I saw it. I said, I told my wife, I go, whoever did the sound here, this helps. It's part of the scaffolding that holds that film really well.
Yeah, thank you for noticing that. That was a big part of the film, and I knew that sound is important. There is no one person that did the sound on this. The whole team behind that. Well, of course, first there's the on-set stuff, for which we had a brother of one of my friends, actually, that we promoted to boom up on this that did very well with little to no training. But nonetheless, we had a lot of on-set situations where there's terrible background noise by no fault of the production sound mixer, but just the environments. There's always roads next to us. There's even a situation where you can see in a scene where we have lunch outside where there were wood chippers next door and all kinds of stuff like that pretty much butchered all of our exterior audio. Not to mention driving in a car where there's constantly... and with the law of mics, we're constantly scratching the mic. And so it was pretty clear to me in post that a lot of this would need to be re-recorded. Yeah. And so we had our friend Sean Brackett, who is also an editor on the film. He is also a voice actor, so conveniently, he had a recording booth in his house that he was happy to let us use. So by the end of it, we ended up re-recording 80% of all the dialogue in the film.
Oh, wow.
All that. And so then from there, there's still sound effects that have to be recreated. Even if we didn't have to do ADR, there's still plenty of things like, characters walking, you pick something up or down, just all kinds of tiny little things that add to the experience that will just bring your film to a whole new level if you can have those sound effects.
So you literally, when you're re-recording dialogue, are you having to lip sync to yourself?
Absolutely.
And so if you filmed outside where there is supposed to be an ambient outside sound, nothing that's interruptive, do you have to go out into that environment to re-record that, or do you do that in the studio and add the ambience later?
We add the ambience later. There have been times before where I've been in really echoey situations and only one line needs to be re-recorded, and for that we're like, okay, fine, just go to the location. But when it's entire scenes, do the whole thing. There's going to be a very noticeable quality difference if you're just doing one line.
Wow. I couldn't tell that was done. I've always been fascinated with how you sync something like that up. I mean, I'm distracted when I watch. I don't know if you've ever heard of Harlan Coben.
I haven't. No.
He's a novel writer, and these foreign companies on Netflix, they take his mystery series and they make them into they put them into film, but they're always foreign. So the original language is French, but they're overdubbing it in English, and I'm distracted by that. It's hard for me mentally to get my brain around it, but I don't know that I could. I'm probably too OCD to try to sync up a vocal, a dialogue line like that. That must take a while.
Yeah, it depends. I personally feel like I thrive from multiple takes. So both myself and Tyler, by the end of it, were like, we actually liked being able to do a take 2 on some of our acting that we weren't content with on set in the sound booth. But for many people, that is very much a challenge, especially when lines are spoken fast. There's a note to myself, slow down your lines in the future would have made it a lot easier.
Yeah. Well, you definitely have some diverse personalities that come across in there. I mean, obviously, it's Don Potter.
Right.
His character kind of is this supernova of personality that's kind of rolling through the whole thing,
Yeah.
So
before we get too far from the topic, I should give credit to syncing up that audio in post. Colton Beckwith, I don't even think he was 18 yet at the time when he was doing that, and I was collaborating with him to refine it. And man,
I think I saw him. Did he have hair like kind of down to his shoulders a little bit? He looked like he skateboards.
He might have, yeah.
Okay.
That might have been the guy.
Yeah, I think
he was with us editing promotional content when we had our theatrical run as well.
Yeah, whoever it was, there was somebody. He was not a large person, and I went. He looks like he's really young. And I said, he's got to be good, and clearly he is. So that's really cool. I loved it. I love it when it's weird how the touches behind the scene can really. You know what they say in editing? It's not. In writing, it's not what you put in, it's ultimately what you pull out of it that makes the difference, and probably sound work has that feel too.
Yeah, well, what we say is there's the movie you write, the movie you shoot, and the movie you edit. They're all 3 different ones.
So you have previous work, obviously, and I was looking at them. I mean, you go back, what I found on IMDb, that you started with something called The Day the Wi-Fi Went Down, and I was aware of you doing these things because... Well, I know your dad. Your dad was my doctor at one point. He's not now. But he would put your stuff, and he would talk about, and since he and I were Facebook friends, I would see what you're in the middle of all the time. And I didn't follow it really closely, but I was kind of surprised to find you have these many.
Oh, that's not even the half of it. That's just as far back as I'm willing to put on my IMDb. But you go on YouTube, it goes a few years earlier than that, and my stuff that's not on YouTube dates back to 2008.
Oh, wow. Which put you... How old are you?
I'm going to be 26.
Okay,
oh, my
so
goodness,
you're in your
I'm
20s.
old.
Oh, no. I'm 58. I just turned... Anyway, you don't want to get into it.
I have to get new insurance now. I didn't think the day would come.
Oh, it is? Is that like...
Yeah, 26.
Is it 26? And when you turn 27, you're off of...
No, when you turn 26, you're off of your parents.
That's what it is, yeah. Because I think... Oh, yeah. So I'm looking at those scenarios with my own kids, too. So.
Yeah. So, no, The Day the Wi-Fi Went Down was not my first movie. My first movie was Luke and Nathaniel's joke movie in 2008.
Yeah. I've noticed you're much more cleaner cropped these days. Your early films, you have the Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure kind of hair going. So,
yeah, it took some time to find the right style.
Yeah. Probably marriage has something to do with it, too.
Oh, no, it happened before marriage, but it certainly contributed to attracting my wife.
Did it help? Oh, yeah,
it helped.
Yeah. Which
I funny you bring that up, because actually when we first met, I was at the at the film festival that my short film, Trial 47, was going to premiere at, and we both saw each other there, and my first thought of her is that's way too much makeup, and her first thought of me was, that's very dorky hair.
Oh, yes, that's the classic marital tension that you balance each other out at some point. And obviously, she is, of course, the lead love interest for you in the film.
She is.
So in terms of making that, I imagine that was easy to do, easy to play that part.
Yeah. And funny thing behind that too is earlier on when we were looking to raise $600K, we weren't even dating at the time. We didn't even have an interest in each other yet, and the casting director from LA was telling us you should put someone like a country singer in that role to appeal to more of the faith-based audience. So there was quite some time we thought that wasn't going to be cast by anyone even local. So it very much worked out when we were doing the short film, and that's like, okay, we were in a relationship by that point, and who do we cast? Oh, that's an obvious choice.
So, in terms of, I want to talk about logistics a little bit. When I made my little fly fishing film, I made mine on the McCloud River, and I literally built my own gimbals. I didn't have the money for stabilizers, and so I went on DIY things, and I actually have a gimbal made out of PVC pipe, and you can walk around with a camera, and it feels like it's all cruising along stable. And then I made a contraption that it was two pulley wheels with a GoPro hanger on it, and I stuck it to where I had a string that I could pin it up, and I got out on the river with my fly rod, and then I pulled a little string, and the camera would come zooming past me as I'm doing this. I did my own shot for that.
Wow.
And a lot of trouble, a lot of stressful logistics. Is there, in terms of logistics, like was there a really hairy place to film, or to get cameras, or that it was a kind of a challenge physically to try to get that shot?
Oh, plenty. Where do I pinpoint one? Filming on the coast, period, was difficult because if you saw in the film, there was that giant staircase we had to go down from the parking lot to get to the beach, and a river to hop over in the process or walk through, and I'm trying to think of any particular one that was... I would say one of the hardest is a spoiler, so I'll be vague. A scene where Tyler's character, who he's James in the film, has a certain arc, and we do this one-take thing where he's walking, and then I can't spoil any more than that.
Okay.
Yeah, but there were all kinds of complicated gimbal movements. We actually did have a gimbal for that, but even then was incredibly shaky. He has to walk at exactly the right time, get it as close as we can to the beat of the music, because it was this whole scene that has to be cut to music, and it took 13 takes to do, which isn't much in the grand scheme of filmmaking, but when there are extras that have already been there for like an hour overtime, it's extraordinarily stressful. That whole scene period, that morning, the gimbal wasn't working at all, and several of the shots in that scene required it, or it was not going to have the emotional impact it had. It was the emotional height of the movie, and for the first hour or so of filming, we couldn't get a single shot off because the gimbal kept giving us problems. So biting our nails, we transferred over to everything that could be done on a dolly track or a tripod until finally our camera assistant was able to fix it at lunch. But that was, oh man.
Do those moments have that we're losing money kind of feel to it, or?
Oh, more than that, we will not get this second opportunity. We had extras all scheduled for that day. We don't have money to go hire them back. We had it on the news. We had it on all our posts. All extras, we need you to come back to this church at this time on this day. And we would not get a second chance if we did not get all those shots off. I was internally panicking.
That church site where, which people will see in the film, there's a place where everyone's congregated for a particular moment. I think I could say it that way. Where that was here? Was that?
Yeah, that was Trinity Alliance Church.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought I recognized the inside of it. I've been there for events, so that's really cool. I love, man. You really did plug in a lot of local stuff. Who thought to put your dad shows up in the scene, and I saw it. I busted up laughing because I know that look. That is a classic Andre look, you know.
Oh, it's his dream role to play a grumpy old man like that.
Didn't say a word. Speaking of, whose van is that you're using in this?
Tyler actually acquired that from a friend who randomly told him, hey, you want to buy a van? When we were in the middle of pre-production for the short film. He was like, actually, I do. How much for it? And it's the same amount that my character buys it for in the film.
Oh.
$500. We had already written that in the script, and it was already beaten up, and all we needed to do was add the decals to it, do some Amazon shopping, have somebody make them look all weathered and rusted up.
As you know, or maybe you don't know, I work a day job, and I remember I was sitting there watching this thing, and bandana guy. I don't know what you call it. What's he referred to in here? Bandana geezer. Yeah. I realized he was my coworker, and he sat at the time. He's moved on, but he was sitting 2 desks away from me, and I looked at my wife. I go, I know him, and so I went straight to work, and this won't spoil anything, but we took a picture with a water bottle full of apple juice, just out of just a tribute to his part. And then he moved on and he took other employment somewhere, but I haven't seen him since, but hopefully I'll see him again. But he was a pretty cool guy.
Wow, that's awesome.
I liked his part. He just, there was an obnoxiousness to it that that he pulled off, and he seemed like he really got into it. So I imagine people maybe do get into it at some point. Is there a momentum with character? Did you start out shooting those first few scenes, and then and then you realize you've kind of got your identity and you're going forward with it?
For me, I always felt that, but I did notice in other actors it took time to settle in, especially when they had stage experience. Stage, as most people know, is a much louder performance where they're acting to the back row and very much exaggerating movements, and so that's the big direction we kept needing to give a lot of people is tone down. But we'd rather have that than somebody with no acting experience at all that you can't possibly bring them up. It's easier to desaturate it than it is to saturate it.
Makes sense. That makes sense to me. You can. It's something I call the karaoke rule. If somebody was singing karaoke and the sound person, if you sing with a soundtrack, this happens at churches, by the way, too. If you hand somebody a soundtrack and they get up to sing, and the sound guy has the background track too loud, and it starts off too loud, and he pulls the volume down, the song is ruined. There is no, the musical bed is now forever ruined because there's something about that sudden adjustment. It just takes things out. Well, okay, so, I keep making all these points. Ultimately, we're here because your film, you did those brief runs, those theatrical runs, Red Bluff, Redding, you said it was Kansas.
Kansas, yeah.
Kansas, and where else was it again?
There's Grants Pass. I'm trying to go from north to south here. Crescent City, McKinleyville.
Oh, wow.
I believe Trinidad too. And I don't know, but you can find on our YouTube, Mighty Men of Valor Studios, we have recaps of every single theater we were at. So if you see Miracle Mile Theatrical Tour recap.
And I'm going to put, and if you're listening to the podcast, I'm going to put a link to Mighty Men of Valor Studios will actually be in the podcast, the show page description for this too, so you don't have to write it down. Just go to wherever the Spotify description, Apple, wherever you're listening to this, and hopefully it'll be a hyperlink, and you'll be able to head right to it. So you are looking now, since those theatrical dogs have hunted, as they say. You are now looking at some kind of distribution, I believe DVD, and potentially some kind of platforms in the future. How would you put that into context?
Sure. Well, of course, by the time this airs, it will already be out, but it will be on several digital platforms. Which ones in particularly, even I am not entirely sure yet, but the strong possibilities are places like Amazon Prime and Apple TV and so on. But you'll be able to see in the links when we have a link to our website what places exactly. But the benefit of the DVD is that there will be exclusive bonus features that at this point in time are only available on DVD, hopefully in more places in the future. But literally 2 hours of content about the making of. And
Wow.
you, sir, actually have a shot in them. We have a part about the theatrical run where we have people talking about, and we saw even people tearing up in the theater, and we found a shot of your wife wiping a tear from her eyes, and we're like, that's a perfect shot to use for that moment, and there you are next to her.
Oh wow, yeah, pretty cool. That was really cool how you had that whole thing like sequestered for it, and it was just that was great, and it was, and it does have a there's beautiful resolution. I'll just say that much. I'm not into spoiling people's stuff either, So yeah. So is there anything else about this that you would like to let anyone know, or do you have any other projects in the hopper?
Well, when it comes to projects in the hopper, I should say this process has very much burned me out. It's been 6 years in the works now, so that's 6 years of very late nights and lots of stress, all kinds of rejection, people management, tech problems that just all built up to me really realizing, even while shooting, that, man, this is a lot, and I don't feel the energy to keep going, but I had to just shut that part of my brain down and say, well, sucks for you, we have to finish this thing, and that would still be another 2 years of being burned out and constantly pushing. I don't feel I can fully convey what that feels like in just a few sentences, really, but it's to the point where I've had to tell the team, like, no, really, we need a pause on this.
Oh, wow.
I feel like the film industry in general is just a big hustle culture that I don't entirely feel is healthy, because, it's like, we got to get the script written, we got to get the investors, then once that's there, green light, we got to get the thing made, we're done filming, we've got to get it edited for theaters, and then theaters come along, we've got to find distribution, we've got to have the next thing ready, and even while you're making it, there are still people being like, you already have to have the next thing ready, because the first thing you're going to be asked is, so what's next? And I'm like, well, then when do you rest? When do you stop? When do you take care of yourself? And I've said that time to take care of myself is now. So I'm not entirely sure what is next, but I am confident that God has a plan, and he is not looking down from heaven being like, oh, shoot, I didn't plan for this.
Well, I appreciate you keep the main thing with regards to this. And, because and that's the great thing about what you've done is how there is an absolute center to this. Did you have the experience? Did you have anybody in the periphery whose filmmaking experience was helpful here? Any besides yourself? There are people that have been involved in filmmaking around here. I just didn't know whether did you have anybody you could lean on during times of I don't know what to do.
When it comes to the filmmaking side of it, unfortunately not, because I feel like after the years of mentorship I've gotten from people in the area, I've now reached their same level.
Yeah.
Even Tyler, there was a conversation we had at one point where we're like, we are equals now. We are both at the same level of filmmaking, and neither is greater than the other. So when it came to filmmaking, there was a lot of we have to figure things out ourselves, and I felt that was really difficult for me, especially when there's even things like tech issues where I'm like, where do I go? I'm stuck with the YouTube videos. What happens when the troubleshooter needs troubleshooting?
Yeah.
But a few people that I would like to thank that were helpful in a lot of different areas were my friend Daniel Lloyd with the tech side of things, like for him being able to lean on him to be like, how do I build a RAID hard drive? We're going to need 28 terabytes of storage for this. That needs to be able to be a fast drive for a reasonable price. Same thing with the computer. I have X amount of dollars. We need a really fast computer that can handle this format of footage.
Yeah.
And so anytime my computer was crapping out at the last minute when stuff is due, he was the person I would call to come and get the computer fixed. And when it comes to just personal mentorship, like I'm in a dark place right now where I have a big decision to make. My friend Elijah Stevens, for whom you've seen one of his films in my IMDb list, his film was Send Proof, and he yeah, he directed that documentary, and he just had a lot of great wisdom, and I was constantly going.
I hadn't heard of it until I looked it up today, and then I started to get a sense of what it was. Obviously, there's a faith-based core to it, but I haven't dug into it yet. Unfortunately, I haven't seen. I went to your IMDb, and I was like, yeah, I think I know what he's got. And I'm like, no, I haven't been paying that. Apparently, I don't know what Luke's been doing, so... well, I've got nothing but high hopes for you, and thanks for putting us on the TVD, I guess. Yeah, that was great, and so we don't know what the future holds. Do you want to make more films, or do you want to be involved in some kind of production like that, even if it's a smaller?
I do hope to continue making films in the future. Right now, I do look through my film list, and I'm like, man, hopefully every film is not as hard to make as this, but if it is, there are a few ideas while I'm like, cross that off, that's not worth it. But there are a few where if I didn't get to make them before I die, I'd be like, oh well. So yes, eventually when I recover, I do hope to be able to continue doing this. But other things I would like to pursue more as well is acting. I played one of the 3 leads in the film, and Tyler played one of the 3 leads, and that was not a budgetary decision, contrary to popular belief. Even when we were trying to raise $600,000 to $1 million, we were still telling everyone, we want to play the leads. These roles are reserved for us because we want to act.
Yeah.
So I would love to be acting in more films. And another thing I found myself particularly passionate about in the post-production side of things is color grading, being able to give that last polish on the film to make it look good. And I really like how I don't have to listen to stuff while doing it, and it's not as mentally draining. It's making things look pretty, which I can do pretty intuitively. So
oh yeah, it's just visual. You could almost listen to a podcast while doing it, I guess.
I listened to a few of yours today, actually.
Oh wow.
Yeah, while doing stuff like that.
I'm working on it. I'm trying to improve, just like everything. I just started this thing back in October, I think it was. So, and I had to dial, I like anything. I started out thinking I was going to be talking about history and some conspiracy, maybe with a whiff of politics, which I learned real fast I don't want anything to do with. And even eschatology, because if you listen to podcasts now, conspiracy and eschatology and where we are in the world and where things may be heading with the world, it's all a big focus. And by the way, giants and the Nephilim are just like big stuff now. And I thought, I'll touch on a lot of that stuff. And then I've got a friend who's got a podcast that's I found out was quite successful. And it's nothing like me, but he does sort of true crime, horror. But he's a basically, compared to me, a kid that I've known since he was little. And I reached out to him and I said, well, you're doing really well. And I mean, he's doing well. And he just gave me just simple advice. He goes, focus. Find your niche. Find the thing that's most important and run with that. And I went, well, what do I like the most? I like history. And so I realized that somebody might listen to this show with you on it. You're the first person I've ever had across a microphone, by the way, on this.
I'm honored.
And thank you. And I am as well. And you're doing something really great that doesn't happen in the filmmaking industry that often. But in a sense, this is kind of a moment. It is sort of Northern California history in a way, because you've made one of the first movies that I've seen that I actually enjoyed that was made here. I've seen some, and I know people that have been heavily involved. I've seen documentaries that have been made here. Mike Flanagan did that one about Shasta, and it's kind of long. It's on Amazon, and I really did like it, but it's long, but it's not a film. But I did see one that was made in Dunsmuir at the hotel up there. They tried to make a horror movie, but they couldn't even tell a cogent story. You have a cogent story. So even aside from the inspirational side, aside from the faith-based side, aside from the God is at the center of your relationship side, you still manage to tell a story that goes from A to B to C tie it into a bow so that no one walks out confused or having some cognitive dissonance about what they just saw.
Yeah.
And that seems to be a big hump that filmmakers can't get over sometimes. It's really strange.
Yeah, unfortunately. That's a big thing for Tyler and I, is we're big on satisfying endings. There have been plenty of films I even if the writing is great, where it gets me invested and then just has a disappointing ending and then I want to throw tomatoes at the screen. We're like, no. Good guys win. Every emotional beat is paid off. Of course, there has to be dark moments. You cannot have that ultimate high without having the lowest low, but our philosophy is you make the lowest low so that you can then have the highest high. Not have the lowest low because life is dark and depressing. Like, no. We go to movies so that we can have a break from that.
You can't. David couldn't write Psalm 51 if he hadn't been with Bathsheba. So, I don't know if that. Anyway, you know where I'm going with that. So, well, I really appreciate you being on the podcast, and I'm gonna put a good intro on this, and we'll get this all tied up, and I can't wait to see where it goes. And I personally want to own the DVD because I'm into holding. I like tangible objects.
Right.
Streaming's cool, downloads are cool, but at the end of the day, if I can own a DVD. By the way, I want it signed by you and as many people as I can get on it. And if you have an extra poster laying around, I'd like it. I'd like to get a poster.
Yeah, hopefully maybe Blu-ray someday too. We hope it can be shown in its full quality. There's kind of the difficulty is right now it will only be available on DVD, but then the quality is significantly reduced. But then if you see it on streaming, you'll be able to see closer to the original resolution of the film. So where would I watch it? I'd have both.
All right. Well, by the time you're listening to this, it's going to be Miracle Mile. Hopefully, it'll be on a platform that is readily available to you. And I'm going to put the link to Mighty Men of Valor Studios. Luke, thank you for being on the podcast.
And thank you, Ron.
No, brother.